friends, welcome to a vlog. It's been so long since I've talked to you in a vlog. It's been a long time, hasn't it? I don't know, maybe you haven't noticed, because I do feel like I've been putting out a lot of content recently for me. you know, but today is Wednesday. It's the day before Thanksgiving, and here I am at the gym ready to head on in there, drinking my pre-workout drink. I only have a little sippy sip left, and I just started a book today, and I thought, you know what, I would really like to vlog reading this, so that is my plan. I don't know what else I will include because it is Thanksgiving holiday. My kids are home from school, and husband will be as well, so I don't know, like, it's not like, I sometimes feel like, that's why I often film in my car when they're home, is because I feel a little bit inhibited when I'm talking if I know that they're like in the house and able to hear me. So anyway, I started a book today. Let's get into it, shall we? So I mentioned that I really wanted to read this book when I did my Goodreads Choice Awards video, and I'm gonna mess up the title. My brain doesn't want to be my friend today. This is the book I'm reading. It is a literary fiction blend with romance, and I love that. I personally really enjoy literary fiction. It's not the genre that I love the most. Obviously, I love romance the most, but I have a deep appreciation for literary fiction. I think that the writing most of the time is unparalleled. The thing that I don't love about it is how often it dwells in the sad, gritty, ugly reality of humanity. Like, I don't like that. That's why I love romance, and that's why I love specifically the happily ever after, the HEA that you get with romance. And that's one reason also why I feel like Kennedy Ryan is my favorite author, because she is the only author that I have ever, the only romance author I have ever read whose writing quality is so high, her themes are so deep, she explores such great topics and issues that she could very easily write literary fiction, and I just freaking love her so much. So I stumbled across a TikTok, this author's TikTok actually, months and months ago, where she was addressing a question where somebody was saying something in the comment. I'll have to try and find that TikTok, but someone said, it's a shame that they put this book in romance because it's so deep and profound, and it's not gonna, you know, like, it's like they were saying, like, that's stupid. It's a shame they put this great, beautiful book in romance because romance is trash, basically was the message. And her response was so great because she was like, romance is powerful, and I just love that. Like, so this author is a National Book Award finalist, and this is a romance. I've heard several people in reviews, nobody that I know personally, say that they don't feel like this is a romance, that they feel like it's too much literary fiction. And so I'm really curious to see why they think that. I'm positive I'm gonna love this book. I really am. I mean, knowing that it's a romance, hearing from the author that it has a happily ever after, like, that's all I need to know that I'm gonna love it, because I'm only on chapter 4 right now. I started the audiobook today, and the way that I immediately connected with this author's writing just blew me away. There's something about really excellent writing that allows you to get so invested in the story right away, but then there's also these little phrases or thoughts or scenes or actions of the characters sprinkled in that allow you to connect with it on a deeper level and to see the overall, the bigger story, the bigger themes, what she's talking about, other than not, I don't want to say just the romance, but that's, you know, it's more than a romance. There's something thematic going on here. There's something that she's trying to tell a story about. And the theme overall is grief. So the basic plot of this book is the heroine lost her husband in a car accident. And I think it's been 5 years since he passed away. And she has really struggled to live life since then. She feels a lot of grief, obviously, but also a lot of guilt. And it's not really unveiled at this point why she feels like that. It's obvious that she does. And I've read quite a few books like this year, and I'm very happily married. My husband is alive, and we've been married for 22 years. Right? Yeah, we've been together for 23 years, and we've been married for 22 years. He is the love of my life, and I don't even want to think about losing him in that way. I don't even want to think about living the life that this woman is leading in this book. So she's dealing with her grief. She ends up going out with her friend. Her friend is a hoot, by the way, Joy. She's fantastic. She goes out with her friend one night to a club, and her friend is kind of like, you need to get laid. You need to find somebody. You need to try and move on. And so she does. She has this really hot night in the bathroom there with this guy that she meets. She has this connection with. And in that moment, in that act, you can tell that she's finally able to like numb that pain, that grief. And so she continues this relationship with this man. It's not a deep relationship, it's a very surface level relationship, but they're dating and things like that. And then come to find out, she actually ends up meeting one of his friends who she feels something deeper with, who feels this bigger connection with her, and who kind of doesn't necessarily chase her, but is pursuing her. And she is a little bit put off by that because she doesn't want anything to be deeper. She's not ready for that, but she can't deny the draw that she feels to him. So that's where I'm at right now, and that is going to be the romance, the love story. So this book is obviously talking about grief in a big way, and I've been wanting to do a video about this for a really long time, and I just haven't, I guess, organized my thoughts in a way that I felt like would be coherent enough for a full video. So many of my videos are just like bullet point notes, like I don't ever script anything. I have ideas, I have thoughts that I want to talk about. So I worry about tackling a topic that I want to make a video about like this, which is who gets to say what a romance is. Like, we know that there are obviously genre constraints, that it has to be mostly about the romantic journey between these group of people. You know, the romantic relationship is the primary focus of the story, and it has an optimistic either happily ever after or happy for now. Like, that is basically the genre definition of a romance. Everything else is a subgenre of that. So I've heard recently, just in chatter on social sites, not from anyone specifically, that books like this that deal with grief or that deal with heavier themes, aren't romances. And I get so frustrated when I hear that, because romance is literally the only place where these types of heavy themes can be explored, while simultaneously guaranteeing you that the hope of a happily ever after is there. So I find it very reductive, and I don't like it when people say stuff like that, because those are the types of books that I like. And it's interesting to me that so often people are like, well, I just want to have fun. I just want to read for fun in romance. I don't want to be sad. And that's, you know, I have moments in my life where I want to read like that. Basically, the entire year of 2020, that's all I wanted. I wanted happy, good times, fun. You know, and anything dark or anything serious, I was like, don't want it, don't like it, not a romance. I mean, you know, to an extent. So I think that it's very interesting that this is a conversation that is happening. And I feel like the thing that frustrates me so much about this is that the people who are talking about this are saying books such as this are not romance because they don't fit their personal taste of what they think romance should be. Because it does fit all the definitions of a romance. The romance is the central plot, the relationship. There is a happily ever after. Just because it deals with heavier themes and isn't just either lighthearted or full of sexy times, you know, and there is sex in this, but then they're thinking it's not a romance. So I find it interesting how often in every genre, but I find like this happens specifically in romance a lot right now, when people are talking about how this book isn't a romance because it doesn't conform to what my personal taste is, when really that's what you're saying. You're saying this book is outside of my personal taste, and I don't like that this is being called a romance because this is what I think romance should be. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Good morning, welcome to the vlog. That was a 10-minute clip when I've just been reading this book for 4 chapters. So, all right, I don't know what else I'm going to include in this vlog, maybe just this one book. I just wanted to have a chance to talk about it. So here I am. So I'll see you all when I have more to say about this, and I hope you're all having a great week. Thank you for joining me in another reading vlog. Hello friends, happy Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving Day, and I am cooking. We are going to be eating in about 2 hours, and so I'm just getting everything ready. And I finished my audiobook, You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, and I just had to come and tell you that it was a freaking masterpiece. It was so absolutely beautiful and perfect, and I adored it so much. Like, as soon as I heard about this book, I knew I was, like, I just had this feeling, like, I think I'm gonna love that. I think I'm gonna love it unless something happens with the romance in a way that I don't like. But, oh my gosh. My heart, like, this book made me ache, and it made me swoon, and it was just a freaking masterpiece. So 5 stars. This actually is this is a 6-star read for me for sure. I just wanted to come and tell you that I don't have a lot of time to go into detail, but absolutely loved it. And I kind of wish that I had waited to vote for the Goodreads finalist, because this one absolutely would get my pick. I hope so badly this makes it into the final round, because this was perfection. It was so completely beautiful. 6 stars. One of my favorite books of the year. Like, geez Louise, I'm a little blown away. So I'll come back tomorrow and talk about it more in detail, and then I'll let you know what I'm going to read next. So, it was so good. Happy Thanksgiving.
Up over Mars, you trim a tree, I put up a star. I wear a sweater, it's down to my knees, and you will kiss the freckles on both of my cheeks, and we will sing our own Christmas song.
Hello, friends. Okay, it's the day after Thanksgiving, and I want to talk a little bit about You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. So, this book was both what I expected it to be and not what I expected it to be at all, because it does feel very literary, like a lot with the themes that it's playing with. Obviously, like, grief is a really big part. Like, grief is a huge part of this book. And to me, it felt very, like, visceral. Like, something this author does that I really liked is something that we were just talking about in our recent Rake Appreciation Society live show, where we were talking about Sea of Ruin. How Pam Godwin in that book, like, she layers these small details that allow you to feel the horror of what's happening to that character a little more viscerally. They're very small, but they're very powerful. And that is also something that this author does when she's talking about the grief that she's experiencing in losing her husband. And they were, like, childhood sweethearts. They were only married for a year before he died, and she's really just been in, like, this state of stasis where she's not moving forward. She's not living at all. She's just barely surviving. And so she is an artist, where she does these art installations, and one of them, like, all of them sort of play with this meaning of grief and loss and moving on, even though she herself can't really move on, or she hasn't been able to yet. And one little detail that she had is one of her installations, she hangs from the ceiling wedding rings, different wedding rings she's collected through the years. And this may be a spoiler, but I don't really know how to talk about this book without spoiling certain elements of it. So, I mean, you know, her husband has passed away, and one of the wedding rings that she has is her husband's wedding ring that she kept from the car accident, and it still has his blood on it, and it still has her blood on it. And that was just such another element of just, like, shock, but not in a way that was just deliberately meant to shock you. Like, it was a little bit horrifying and shocking, but it added so much to this feeling of loss, this profound feeling of loss, and, like, never going to recover that again, you know? And that, for me, like, that moment was so, like, it made me feel so much horror that it was almost, this book Even though earlier I was talking about, like, I enjoy books that deal with heavy themes. Like, I like reading romances specifically that deal with grief because I feel like the HEA adds such a powerful, hopeful element to people in this life who are dealing with things, who don't get their happily ever after, maybe, or who haven't yet, and they're hoping to. And that's why I feel like romances with this type of content are very important. But this very specific installation, this art, this moment, and something that happens at the very end regarding that wedding ring and this fear she has of losing it and how she explains what it means to her, it was so like visceral for me that it almost felt like this is too much for me, you know? And I found that just like, I'm on the verge of tears as I'm talking about this right now, but I found that to be so powerful. This one tiny detail, the blood, her husband's blood that she still has on that wedding ring that she uses in this art installation. So that's the type of content that you find in literary fiction, you know, stuff like that leaves you feeling unsettled, that brushes right up against life, things that we deal with in life that we don't want to talk about or that we don't want to experience and that a lot of us don't want to read about. Grief, loss, this sense of nothing's ever permanent, you know? And I don't know if I'm just in my emo phase or what, but it speaks to me a lot, and I love that. But if it just had that, if this book only had that element, if it only had talked about her grief, this profound sense of loss of losing her husband, it wouldn't be a romance. It wouldn't be something that I enjoy reading. I would maybe still rate it highly, but it wouldn't have been something that was enjoyable. Like I hear so often, and I don't disagree with this entirely, that romance is about joy, and it is about joy, but that's not all that it's about. Sometimes romance is about getting through hard things. Sometimes romance is about experiencing loss and sadness and sorrow and lost dreams, and then trying to find your way back and reclaiming that joy again. But it's not just a case study in joy, you know what I mean? And so this is where I sort of feel a little bit of irritation, because it's not always just young people who are saying that. It's sometimes older people. And I get the feeling romance is a place to escape and to feel joy. But it also is a place to experience and work through trauma and grief. That there is no other safe place to do that. There's no other safe place to study and read, not even study, read and experience those things and have the promise of a happily ever after. No other genre does that. So to distill romance down to only fun, happy, lighthearted things and trying to like gatekeep it and say that's all it should be, I find that very upsetting. I don't think there's an answer for one thing that the romance genre can be. It's something else for everybody, you know? And I feel like that's why I'm trying to find a way to talk about books that don't meet what I'm specifically looking for, in a way that doesn't make people feel bad if they are looking for those types of things, you know? And that's what this whole conversation about heavy themes and grief and loss, you know, all of those things I've been talking about, and people saying that, well, that's not a romance because it's like, that bothers me when I hear talk like that, because it makes me feel like, have you never experienced anything in your life that was hard, that made you hope for happiness after? I don't know. This vlog is really more of me talking about something that's been bothering me about the romance community. And I think that when I so often say I don't like how romance is so smut driven, it's because of this exact thing, you know, because I feel like romance has so much potential to heal and for people to work through things that I've found there, that I don't enjoy seeing it just, you know, watered down to one thing, and that's just what everything on the planet sells, right? Sex sells. I don't know. So this book was painful to read at times. There were, not just with the loss, but there's almost like a love triangle aspect to this. Like, there are two men that she meets. One you know isn't going to be like the love interest. The other one you think might be. And then there's a third man who comes in who is the actual love interest. And it's not technically a love triangle, but there is a sort of pain in there when you know the final man that she meets. I don't even know if I want to spoil it. I feel like if I spoil it, it may entice some of you to read it. But if I do, is that too much of a spoiler? So I'm gonna say it And if you think it's I'll put a spoiler tag up on here. So the man she ends up with is the man she started to have feelings with, and she goes to his home in another country where she is, going there to show her art. She ends up falling in love with his dad. So it's an age gap romance, and they have this really beautiful, powerful connection, her and the dad do. Almost to the point where it's like it feels that soul level chemistry type of romance, It was just so freaking good. So that romance was beautiful and powerful. And I do wish that they had a little bit more of an extended happily ever after. And I'm not typically one who needs a long time them together and happy. But for this book, I feel like the amount of pain in here didn't quite balance out with the amount of happy that you got at the end. Even though you do get a happily ever after, and it's full of hope and beauty, and it was still very painful to get there, but it was beautifully, absolutely beautifully written. It talks about so many different aspects of life, and it was funny at times. Like, this book isn't just heavy and sad. Like, it was funny. It had a lot of great humor. It was just fantastic. So I did give this book 6 stars. I mean, I rated it 5 stars, but this is a 6-star book for me because it was just fantastic. I loved it so much. So, yeah, anyway, I hope that I have maybe inspired some of you to pick this up because it was beautifully written. It was epically romantic. It had a lot of angst for my angst lovers out there like me, and she's trying to decide who she's going to be with. There's some angst there. There is a happily ever after. This is a queer book too, which some of you pointed out in my Goodreads video, so thank you for that. I didn't know that. There is queer representation in here, which I really liked. So it was just beautiful. I loved it so much. So honestly, I was going to try and keep this video to 20 minutes. Maybe I'm tempted to end it here, but I did start Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, so I'm going to read that, and hopefully my commentary on that won't be super long because I did kind of want to keep this video short, but so far I'm only a few chapters into Part of Your World. This is another one of the Goodreads Choice nominees that I wanted to read, and this book has been on my radar for a long time. Zay gifted me this book because she's like, I know you're going to love it. And so far I can tell you that I am loving it. Like, the meeting between this couple is so funny and cute and endearing. The way that, she ran off the road, it was like snowing, and he comes and pulls her out, and then she meets him in a bar, and he's the mayor, and he says he has to leave because he's got to go feed the kid, and she's like, you have a kid? And he's like, I have a goat, kid. And like, there's this bet with his friend saying that if he can get her to go home with him, he'll win $100, and so she does, but like, he lets her in on it, so she's like, let's just do it and we'll split the money. They go home, and of course they have a one-night stand, and like, the beginning is very fun. I know this book deals with some heavier themes too. Specifically, I think from what I've heard, there's like emotional abuse with a past relationship, so I'm interested to see how that unfolds. But so far, I'm very, very, very much enjoying this, and I'm very happy this is on the Goodreads Choice Awards finalists. So, the first book, absolutely Goodreads. Like, I think I mentioned this earlier. If I hadn't already voted, that would be my vote because it was fantastic. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm very excited about it, and I'll update you probably when I'm done with it and give you my final thoughts on it. So thanks for watching.
Hark how the bows, sweet silver bells, all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, that is the song with joyful ring, all caroling. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they pound, raising the sun. Oh, hill and dale, telling the tale. Gaily they ring, while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, merry, merry.
It's Friday night. I'm reading this book. I'm this far in. It's so swoony. I love it so much. It's so swoony, you guys. I'm really, really loving it. Only this far into it. I love it. So far, fabulous. I'll be back with more coherent thoughts when I finish, maybe. Hello, my friends. Okay, let's wrap up this reading vlog. I finished Part of Your World, and I adored it. I loved this book so much. This is another 6-star read. Like, I honestly am kind of amazed that I've just been having so many good reads lately. In November, I've had so many good reads, and this book just blew me away. I loved it. I was so captivated by this. Like, this was one of those books that I couldn't put down, as was You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. Like, both of these were just so compelling to me, and I just love them. And oh my gosh, it was just so good. Like, the hero in this was so swoony. I loved their romance. This, you know, there's a little bit of an age gap in here. She is 37 and he's 28. Oh, sorry, babies. My puppy Kazi down there. So I thought it was really interesting that both of these books that I picked have what can be considered like a taboo romance, where you have, like, this one has the age gap where she's older, and the other one was like boyfriend's dad, and there was another age gap in that one. Both of those have a very often used taboo romance trope, but as opposed to just a taboo book, which is one of probably the main purpose of a taboo romance, is to titillate you, to, you know, have something taboo, spicy in that way. The purpose of it here wasn't to titillate you. So I felt like it was really interesting that both of these used those tropes, but they did it in a way that made it feel like they were like two souls coming together, two souls that were meeting up. And I feel like it makes that taboo age gap feel more appropriate, and it's more satisfying for me, the type of reader that I am, because it felt very much like they had it didn't feel like insta-love on either case, in my opinion. It felt more like insta-connection. Like, when you sometimes meet someone, romantically or otherwise, and you just know immediately that this person belongs in your life. I just love that concept so much. I love how much of both of these books had to do with healing, emotional wounds. You know, this book deals with some emotional abuse from her previous relationship, and I feel like even though emotional abuse is often talked about, it's often a, like, subplot in books and romances, and, you know, I've read about it a lot before. I've never read one quite like this that seemed very silent and sinister and invisible to people outside of her relationship. And I honestly really love that that was included in here, and that it was also given a decent amount of gravity and weight. I think so often when we talk about emotional abuse, especially in a romantic relationship, there's a tendency to downplay it and, like, sort of gaslight yourself into thinking, am I imagining this? You know, like, and that's exactly what happened here, because on the surface, that person is so charming. You know, everyone sees them and they think, oh, he's such a great guy, you're so lucky to be with him. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the abuse is relentless, and it's just constantly made to make her feel less than and make him more powerful. And I loved reading about that in here. I also loved reading about therapy was another, not like a huge focus of this book, but therapy was mentioned in here in the way that she healed and the way that she actually became aware. Like, she didn't even realize that she was in an emotionally abusive situation. And I think it's largely because you have all these people outside of your relationship telling you that your spouse, your partner, is so wonderful, and, you know, the outward facade that he presents is so different than what you are living with that person. And the abuse that her ex did to her was a very sinister type of abuse in that way. It was meant to never be noticed. It wasn't even meant to be noticed by her, but it was all about exerting his power over her. So I really loved how she reclaimed her power in the end, both with her ex and with her father. I just loved it so much, and I loved how much the hero just completely worshipped her. So I do feel like the third act conflict in here may be something that a lot of people don't like. It it was uncomfortable. Like, there were so many moments when I was reading this towards, as we were getting closer to the conflict, where I'm like, I know it's coming. I know it's coming, and I want her to not be stupid and just do this. But when it unfolded, and you read about how it unfolds, and you see, and you really understand, like, what a big, crucial step that was for her to break that chain of abuse and to sort of reclaim who she was. I loved it so much. I don't know. I think both of these books absolutely deserve to be on the Goodreads Choice Awards. I think these are two of my favorite books I've read this year. They're richly layered, they're a little bit deep, they're very romantic. You get your happily ever after, the romantic plot is the driving force, but they also handle these deeper issues very, very well. And both is given equal weight, in my opinion. So I absolutely loved this. This book was fantastic. I mean, also the ending, because of the way that the third act conflict happens and what happens, I think that you could say that this is actually a good example of a woman doing some groveling, and I liked that because I felt like she needed to, like the hero was just so sweet, so kind, and she was really the one who messed things up, even though I understood why she did it based on her background and everything that she had to like work through. I really, really loved it. I thought it was just so freaking good. I just can't even stand it. Like, I finished this earlier today, and it's in the afternoon on Saturday, and I like have struggled to pick something else up because I'm just sort of like, this is everything I wanted in a romance. This literally is everything. So, even in my own video, when we're talking about the Goodreads Choice Awards nominees, I expressed disappointment, and I know lots of other people have. Like, there are tons of videos out there right now, people, disappointed in the Goodreads Choice Awards nominees and who they think should be in there, and I think that's totally valid. I do wish there were other books that had been included for some of the ones that were included. However, I feel like both of these, this one and You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, absolutely deserve to be in there. And I, once again, am wishing that I had that I had waited to vote, because it's a toss-up between which one of these I would choose. I probably would choose this one for my winner. I freaking loved this. This was so good. It just was fantastic. So I really want to read more from her, although I've heard people say that, even if this book was standout for them, that her previous works maybe didn't work as well. So I don't know. I've never read her before. I was very impressed with her writing and her storytelling, and it was just so good. Like, I just loved this so much. I loved seeing them get their happily ever after. There was so much about this to just love and gush over, and I just adored it. So, yeah, in my opinion, I feel like both of these books absolutely deserve to be on the Goodreads Choice Award nominees, and I honestly, like, the fact that both of these are on there with some of the other books, specifically the Colleen Hoover, it just has me like wanting to cry, because these are just like leagues ahead of so many of the other books that were picked on there. And I am specifically talking about the Colleen Hoover, which I wish that she would stop getting nominated. I know she never will, because it's decided by what books are shelved, and she's so popular. So many people are reading and shelving her as romance, but these books were just so much better. So much better. Just, as a piece of, as the craft of writing, they're excellent. Excellent. As far as craft goes, I do think You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty was probably slightly better. But as far as like the romance goes, I sort of feel like I preferred this one, the swoony vibes from here. But both, as far as like the emotional weight, dealing with the trauma and some of the heaviness and the life issues, I think they were both equally handled very well. But yeah, if I had to choose a favorite between these two, it would be this one for sure. I love it. I love it so much. And I'm so glad that I finally read it. This is another one of those books that I just have had like sitting ever since Zay gifted this to me. I think she's actually the one who brought this book to my attention, because she and I have very similar taste in books, and she was like, you're gonna love it. I just know it. And so she bought this and sent it to me, and she was right. I do love it. It was so good. It was so Good. And now, I mean, I have picked up other books since I finished this, but I'm just sort of like, I don't even know what to do with my life anymore. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this vlog. I hope it's not too long. I know I've talked about the books, and I've also kind of talked about my feelings about the, you know, book community and thoughts there. So hopefully that was enjoyable, at least in a little way for you. So thanks for watching. And if you want to leave me an emoji and let me know you were here, you can leave me a Christmas tree or a snowflake. We'll probably have a lot of those in the upcoming month that you could leave me. And I'll see y'all in my next video.